So this is a strange video to be doing because we're going to be talking about poo and wee. And we think a lot about what goes into our mouths, don't we? We think a lot about, what we really like to eat and what we really like to drink. And we all have to go to the toilet. We all have to do our number ones and number twos, our poos and our wees. Every single living organism has to get rid of its waste products. But what is waste for one thing is food for something else. Delicious food. It's food for lots of bacteria and fungi and little protozoa and even worms and all sorts of things. Little tiny creatures live particularly on our poo. And our wee, it ends up on the ground or in the river. It's got lots of nutrients in it that are really good for the soil and for the water. They really help nourish the soil. So we're basically nourishing, we have the potential with our poo and our wee to nourish soil, to nourish water, because there are so many little tiny organisms that love to eat our poo and wee. And those little tiny organisms, when they're happy and healthy and there's loads of them, we have the best soil for growing food and the best soil for growing trees and the best soil for beautiful flowers and plants and wildlife. After all, everything on this planet is dependent on the soil, because we all basically start off as an animal that eats plants which grow out of the soil or the water. So our poo and wee has the opportunity to help feed this incredible, vast populations of organisms that are so small we can't even see them. But actually our guts are full of them too. Did you know that for every one little cell in your body, in our bodies, for every one, we have 10 cells living on us or in us that don't actually belong to us. They're like bacteria, viruses, fungi, protozoa, that sort of thing. And they're all living in harmony with us. And they do a lot of amazing jobs for us. They produce lots of vitamins for us in our guts. And they're able to sort of kill off, bacteria and things that might be harmful. So we really want these good bacteria and fungi in our bodies, and we certainly want them in our soils. So it sort of makes sense that what we put into our mouths needs to be the sort of things that the bacteria and fungi in our bodies like to eat, and the sort of things that when they're broken down into poo and wee, the organisms in the soil like to eat. Now don't get me wrong, all these organisms all sorts of food, like vegetables and fruits and bread and anything like that. They like food. They get a bit unhappy with a lot of sugar. They really don't like a lot of sugar, mainly because there is one organism that does like a lot of sugar, and that is yeast. So we have a lot of yeasts in our body, like what you use to raise bread or make cheese. But normally they're sort of like quite kept under control by the bacteria in our body. And so they don't cause us too many problems. You know if you've got a problem, if you've got a yeast problem, because you get like thrush in your mouth or, in your genital areas. That's yeast. So, but normally it's under control if we don't eat a lot of sugar, because yeast loves sugar. If you think about it, when you make bread, you have to mix in some sugar, don't you, to make the yeast grow. So when we eat a lot of sugar, the yeast sort of takes over, and the bacteria can't cope. They can't keep it under control. And then we end up with a lot of yeast-based problems in our system. Now, the soil doesn't give it whatever. Yeast is still a natural substance. The soil will still make use of it. It just doesn't make us feel very good. But the main problems come with the things that are added to our food. Those are the things that our guts and the soil don't like. They don't like the artificial chemicals that are put into our food. They don't like all the toxins that are sprayed on our food, to stop them being eaten by bugs. Think about it. When they're growing wheat and they spray it with something to kill off all the bugs, well, that same stuff that's killing off the bugs on the wheat is going to kill off the bugs inside us. So, and we don't think about these things. We don't think about what we're putting into our mouths, what that's actually doing to all the organisms, all those billions and billions. I mean, it's like quadrillions of teeny weeny little organisms, teeny weeny little animals, but they've only got one cell, you can't see them, that live in and on us and in the ground and help us to stay healthy and to help the planet stay super healthy. In fact, they help us stay super healthy if we look after them. But that does mean making a few adaptations to what we put in our mouth. And one of the other problems, sorry, I shouldn't say that. One of the other things to think about is when we take antibiotics, for example. So we take an antibiotic because we want to kill a bug that is making us sick. But antibiotics kill all bugs. They kill all bugs. So they're killing a lot of the good stuff that's inside us, and then we put them out in our poo or in our pee, and they go and kill all the bugs out in the environment as well. So we really need to think about this. We need to think about how badly do we need that antibiotic? How badly do we need that contraceptive pill? Because that goes out into the water systems and ends up back in drinking water, or it ends out in the river and the seas, and it's like the fish and the animals are getting contraceptives so they can't reproduce. And we know that the fish stocks are really struggling. So there's all these sort of considerations to take in. But what we put into our mouths comes out the other end and basically is eaten by all the tiny little organisms that we depend on for our not just health. We depend on them for our survival. So think about what we put in our mouths. Is this going to be good for the little organisms all the way down the line? All the little organisms in my gut and all the little organisms in the soil. Yeah, I think they'd like that. I'll eat that. Okay, I love you all. Bye.